Hello, everybody, and happy Thursday. Thank you all so much for tuning in to the PHNX Coyotes Podcast. Don't forget to hit that like button, subscribe wherever you get your podcast. Leave us a 5-star review. I'm Leah here with Petey and Sean. Craig is out at the ice den again for the second time this week. And this time we decided not to let him call in.
That was enough, Craig Morgan, for the week.
He wasn't filming enough shirtless hockey players.
I'm not going to comment on that.
He didn't do that. I just
You
did.
did.
That's us. I was getting at.
I know.
If you don't know what we're talking about, go back and watch Friday's show.
Stalking
and talking. With
But that's the difference. Like, if I'm there, the camera's going to be on. If Craig's there, it's like his pen. Like, who cares? Like a pen and a piece of paper. Like, people walk by and it's like, unless he gets a quote, like a random quote, can't put that on Twitter. Smarten up, Craig.
Craig's the one who breaks news, so he can't talk too much.
I know. I heard that a lot. There's a lot of debate over fandom in the media.
We don't need to get into that.
No, but I'm just saying. But Craig's like real. Like, he doesn't.
Craig's a journalist.
Yeah,
he's legit.
Okay,
he's legit. And
yeah, so it was a compliment to Craig.
Yeah, you and I don't know what we are, but
we're here.
We're here to talk hockey because that's what we do every day, 5 days a week. We're going to talk some rivalries today. We're going to talk more about the Bill Armstrong extension, and then we're going to talk a little bit more about community at the end of the show. But let's dive into our rivalry conversation. And the reason this kind of came up is, we're looking at the season ahead. We've been talking about how excited we are for this season. But Petey, it feels like the Arizona Coyotes haven't had a true rivalry in many years. And I will say this right off the top before anybody comes at us. I know that a lot of rivalries are formed in the playoffs, and the Coyotes have only been in the playoffs 1.75 times in the last 15 years. So we can throw that out there to start. I understand that. I guess before we get into this conversation at all, what to you makes a rivalry?
Yeah, and I think there's a couple things that can. And I think it's funny because since this team has been in the Valley, I think there have been a few rivalries over a short period of time. And I think a couple things. One of the things that kicks off rivalries right away is geographical rivalries. Yeah. And I think you see that more in college sports where you get the interstate ASU, U of A rivalries. So I think that's first and foremost where you get the really in-depth rivalries in sports. There are communities that are close together. You get Cincinnati and Cleveland. You get Pittsburgh and Philly, in New York and New York. I think that those rivalries are bred from their location. And with the Coyotes, you talk about teams in California and the late addition of Las Vegas that started to build that geographical rivalry. Unfortunately, the league moved into the Central, and I think that really hurt. But playoffs, to become a playoff rivalry, I think you need to be perennial. You're playing this team. You're playing this team. You look at Calgary and Edmonton. Not only do they have the geographical connection, but they also played each other every single year in the playoffs. So that's what becomes a rival when you get that competitive playoff juices and you're knocking each other out year after year. And you said it yourself. The Coyotes haven't been there enough with consistent opponents and been far enough to have those types.
I do look back on the time that they were making the playoffs, though, and I think about teams like Detroit and Chicago as teams that the Coyotes were playing a lot in those years.
Yeah.
And were maybe like borderline playoff rivals at that time, in that time period.
And I think from the playoffs to themselves, and you look at some of the early 2000s, it was the Detroit Red Wings. There is no doubt. Detroit was in the West, and the Coyotes seemed to face them in very important games in the regular season and then in playoffs. In 2 out of 3 seasons, they played the Detroit Red Wings. Unfortunately for the Coyotes, they were playing a Detroit team that had Datsuk and Zetterberg and Lidstrom, and it was some of their best teams that they'd ever had. So they ran into a steamroller. But I do think the other part of a rivalry, and people might not like to hear this, with playoffs, I think there was the LA Kings of 2012 created an LA King rivalry. Mm-hmm. The problem, and this is why there aren't any big rivalries, or you get the U of A ASU rivalries, is because a lot of those rivalries are one-sided. They're Coyotes-sided.
Yeah.
The Detroit Red Wings are not sitting right now having a discussion that, oh my gosh, one of our biggest rivals is the Arizona Coyotes. They're just not.
Yeah.
So that's what makes a true rival. And I think there are teams, as this team starts to go and starts to win more hockey games and be more relevant in the playoff landscape, I do think you're going to see rivals. But unfortunately, it's the Central Division. Like, is that really going to be a rival? That's
the thing that is upsetting, because when you look at all the geographical ones, they're all in the Pacific. Vegas, LA, even Anaheim, which, there was some animosity on the ice last year. Maybe that's the seeds being planted for a future rivalry, especially if Anaheim and the Coyotes are going to be on the up at the same time. I think that could be something. But just as long as the Coyotes are in the Central, like, you can't really have a true rivalry unless they're making the playoffs year after year, facing those Pacific Division teams. But like, I look at a team like Dallas, Colorado, maybe they're a little bit closer geographically in the Central, and I'm like, there's just nothing there for me to really like get up and get excited about. I don't know. And like, when the Coyotes have faced Colorado in the playoffs, Colorado's smoked them.
Yeah.
It's like,
they faced them a few times in the playoffs, but again, Colorado's not looking at the Arizona Coyotes going, they're our rival. Zero chance. Like, Colorado's Detroit. Now, we talked to both of those. Colorado and Detroit are rivals. Yeah. They made a movie called
an
Rivals.
ESPN documentary on it.
So I think the Anaheim one's interesting to me because they were the first playoff opponent this franchise ever faced after moving to the Valley.
That's good trivia.
With Teemu Selanne and Paul Kariya, and that was the start of what could potentially have been. And now you see the rivalry of what's going when those two teams play, and there's a little bit of heat there. And they've had 2 incidents in 2 consecutive years. So now, maybe that could be a rival. And until they're in the same division and playing each other in playoffs, I just don't see it.
Yeah. A couple of suggestions in the chat. So Chris said Cooley versus Bedard rivalry. And I look at an example like Sidney Crosby, Alex Ovechkin. Yep. That's a perfect example. The only thing is those teams played each other in the playoffs almost every year, so that had that extra thing. But I do think the Crosby versus Ovechkin, who's better, that thing happened. And we just don't – I feel like it's too soon to say if Cooley and Bedard are going to be like that same tier level of facing off against each other and that. But it's an interesting suggestion. Zona Tucson said Ottawa Senators. I feel like maybe there's some interesting bad blood there with how the Jacob Chychrun thing went down. That could be interesting. David said Kings were always the team I saw as a rivalry. Justin Brown versus Doan was gold. And I will say the one thing, and you're right about maybe LA is not looking at Arizona as a rival, but the one thing you can say about LA is LA teams are universally hated among all Phoenix sports.
Yep, Arizona. Yep.
Everyone hates the Lakers. Everyone hates the Dodgers. Like, everyone hates the Rams. If you're a Phoenix sports fan, you just do. You're born with
LA.
That. Yeah,
and you hear that Beat LA chant in every single stadium in the Valley, regardless of the sport. Beat LA. And I think that's the closest that this franchise has to it. And I think the Doan Brown rivalry was real. Yeah. And I think that those two players personally played at their best against each other. And I think that there was, I don't want to say bad blood, because I think they're both really good people, but I do think that the personalities helped evolve that rivalry into a higher state potentially, because it is players. And the other one that the people might not have noticed here in the Valley when you talk about player versus player was Shane Doan versus Blake Wheeler. So when this team would go into Winnipeg, and this was every year that the Coyotes went into Winnipeg with Shane Doan as the captain, when he would touch the puck, the entire stadium would boo. And it was just,
how do you boo Shane Doan?
The team left. And he was on the team when they were there the first time. It's not his fault. Like, dude had nothing to do with the team leaving Winnipeg. But whenever he touched the puck, they booed. And that started the bad blood between the two captains, Wheeler and Doan. And I really believe it got personal. And I think that was it just inside the locker room was a rivalry. It wasn't For the fans, it was internal.
It is ironic though, because Blake Wheeler was drafted by the Coyotes and like was a no-show basically.
Right.
So that there's an extra layer there because
I think there's something to that.
Yeah, because Wheeler left Arizona and Doan left Winnipeg, and now they're the captains of their respective teams. Yep. It's actually an interesting.
So
one.
I do think personnel. That was another thing we didn't list off the top, but people can make a rivalry. If your player leaves your team to go join another team, if that player was a key piece of if Shane Doan left to go play with the Dallas Stars, and then Shane Doan played against the Coyotes in the playoffs, there's a rival.
Yeah,
and I think so. It can be proximity, it can be playoffs, but it can also be people. And so what happens now with this team in the Central, and they're taking a step forward, every time there's a game in the Mullet with the Toronto Maple Leafs, I see that as a big game for the Coyotes. It sure as hell isn't a big game for the Toronto Maple Leafs. Like there is, if you pick 31 rivals for the Toronto Maple Leafs, the Coyotes might literally be 31st, along with Anaheim and San Jose maybe. But I think the Coyotes look at Toronto as a rival because they have so many players come from that area, and the games that they play against them are very big, and they're internationally important games.
I disagree. I think that Toronto has Arizona higher on that list than you might think, because everything we talk about when the Coyotes play Toronto, like Toronto can't win against this team. It's like, and then they go, Austin Matthews is going to go back to Arizona, and Leafs fans act like they're all high and mighty, but that pisses them off.
It does.
It does. So
that's fair.
And now they have Matthews. So they have 2 Arizona-born players on their roster, and they can't beat the Coyotes. You don't think that pisses them off? The Leafs fans are the first ones on Twitter saying, get this team out of Arizona. Like, nobody wants hockey there. Well, if hockey wasn't here, you wouldn't have 2 of your best players on the team. So go.
Where's the banner?
Do we have the banner? It's been a while.
We're putting
I do think.
The Mac. Look how good he is.
Yeah, I do think that Toronto. Like, I was gonna present Toronto as possibly
an
out of and at least out of the Western Conference, it's the number 1 Eastern Conference rival, like without question. And maybe Toronto is scoffing at this, but I don't think Arizona's 31st.
No, and so here you brought up a good point. And this is what I've always said to Toronto fans. When you look at the scoreboard, which is what this sport is about, wins and losses, when you look at that over the last 20 years, the Coyotes are better head-to-head against Toronto Maple Leafs. It's just a fact. So I can sit there and say they're not a rivalry, but yeah, you know what? We're going to make it up today. We're going to make it up. Yes, the East Coast rival is now the Toronto Maple Leafs. You heard it here first at PHNX.
We can decide these things.
We can. It's done.
Yeah, and as far as the West, I do think, it will always be LA. I still hate LA.
Yeah.
Even from 2012.
Yes.
And someone can watch this who's a fan of another team and say, well, like, that's kind of pathetic. It's fine.
Yeah.
It's kind of pathetic that the Coyotes have only made the playoffs twice.
Yes.
Since then.
But it is. LA is in there, and I do agree with geographically, and some of they have faced each other in the playoffs before, and they have had individual personal rivalries. 3 things that we said create a rivalry. I do believe because of those 3 things that the Anaheim Ducks have naturally become one of the Coyotes' rivals.
I think if the Coyotes were in the Pacific Division, we would be saying right now without question, like, and probably even more so Anaheim at this point, given the trajectory the 2 teams are on. LA is kind of in like the back end of their window, and Anaheim and Arizona are kind of on the up at the same time. I think there's another one, and again, this is the one-sided rivalry from Coyotes fans, but I think Vegas and Chicago are very easy natural rivals because they've gotten everything that Arizona hasn't. Vegas had instant success, won a Stanley Cup very early in their tenure, have barely had any suffering for the fan base. Coyotes have had all the Coyotes fans have had all the suffering, so that's kind of a resentment one. Yeah. And same with Chicago. like winning the draft lottery, getting Bedard, winning the draft lottery back then to get Kane to win 3 Stanley Cups. Yeah, I think.
But do you think
those are easy too?
But I think minus the geographical one, the one with Chicago could get interesting over time with Cooley and Bedard. It could. Like I know we don't want to put too much pressure on these 2 young players to go Crosby and Ovechkin and that kind of a rivalry in the Western Conference. But if they're both going to be in the Central Division and you look at 2, 3, 4 years out, these are 2 players that are competing for the overall points lead in the NHL, and they're always at the top of the spectrum. You start getting more national attention between those 2 teams. It could it could grow to the point where that's the Saturday game of the week could be Cooley versus Bedard in the next decade. I don't look beyond that as a possibility. And once that happens, then that's a rivalry.
Yeah.
So it is interesting to see. I think Chicago is a sleeper one. I think it's LA, Anaheim, Chicago. Unfortunately, all of our DNVR fans, I don't see.
Yeah.
Denver doesn't care.
And Toronto, because we're claiming that.
Yeah, we're in Toronto.
So the Watt said Zegras is trying to start a feud with Arizona. You might not be wrong about that. David made a really good point. There's also a lot of Chicago fans in Arizona, which fuels the rivalry. That's true. It's extremely frustrating. Michael said the Ducks may be our sub-rivalry. Sure, that works for me. And then there was another comment that now I forget. But, Roaring Fork. When Houston and or Salt Lake gets an expansion team, that's the rival just cuz.
Yeah, or Quebec City.
Yeah. Oh my God.
Quebec City and Coyotes, automatic, instant rivalry.
Yeah. So drop right now in the chat. You have to pick one today. Who is the Arizona Coyotes rival this season? This season.
No, not future. Now.
Let us know in the chat right now which team you think. Petey, who's your one team this year? This year. It can change. This year,
I'm going to stay in the Central because they're in the Central, and I'm going to say the battle with the basement last year. I'm going to say this season it's the Chicago Blackhawks.
There's one team we haven't mentioned, and that's the Nashville Predators.
Yeah.
And this one's interesting because the Coyotes have faced them in the playoffs the 2 times they've been in the playoffs.
And beat them.
Beat them both times.
Huh.
Maybe that is one that Nashville looks back. And we've talked a lot about these teams are going to be kind of maybe in the same boat this year in the Central. Like if you're going to look at the Central Division and look at who the Coyotes actually are going to be on a similar level with, I think you could make the argument you have that it's going to be Nashville. Both Sunbelt teams.
Yeah, it could be. It could be because I think they're going to be in the same boat trying to compete for that maybe 8th spot, but somewhere between 8 and 12. I think that's going to be very competitive. You do look at those 2 playoff series. That was 2 very hard fought series that the Coyotes were just better than the Nashville Predators. So maybe the Preds are rivalry.
And St. Louis, Roaring Forks bring up. But I will say the Coyotes kind of own the Blues.
Oh, especially when you play them 7 times in a row. I don't know if that'll be right. The problem with St. Louis is they've been around the league so long. They're one of the original expansion teams. There are so many rivals that St. Louis has.
Yeah, that's true.
So I think that's a tough
More history.
one. We're not going to creep into their rivalry.
My vote's for Colorado.
What about Buffalo?
Buffalo would be fun. No, my vote's for Colorado.
Why?
Just because as far as we're concerned, having a rival with the Indian VR is fun.
Yes, it is.
But also talking about owning them, we always have weird games with them. I feel like the last 2 seasons, the Coyotes have been weirdly competitive with the Colorado Avalanche. There's a budding, I feel like natural rivalry between Phoenix and Denver with the playoffs and with the Suns and the Nuggets.
Yep.
And so I feel like, especially we set the agenda here.
Yeah, and let's manifest it.
I feel like having the back and forth with Denver is. It's more fun than a back and forth with LA. That's LA. They have nothing. They have too much going on over there.
They're also very full of themselves.
Yeah, they don't have the energy or the ego to engage in a rivalry with us proper. The Avs, I think, they have a certain amount of geographic sense, and there's a natural connection there. I think it would be fun.
There's a lot of Chicago in the chat. So
and Adam's right here. The Winnipeg Thrashers, Jets. There is some of that because this team moved. And I do think that with the underlying dome thing, it's this is what we talk about, a rivalry going one way. I think it is for Winnipeg fans because the team left.
Yeah.
And I do think there's a part of it. So that is, now that they're in the Central Division.
Arizona fans more than anyone get feeling salty because there's a lot for Coyotes fans to be salty about. So I'm not gonna even hate on Winnipeg fans for that one. Keep letting us know in the chat who you think. This is the exciting thing. I think the Coyotes are now at the beginning of a stage that they can actually create some real rivalries, and I think that's another thing to be excited about.
Yeah, yes. I tell you, I talked to a player very recently, this morning, and we'll talk more about that maybe later. But he was talking about Logan Cooley, and this is from the inside of the locker room, and they're very excited to have this young man on the team.
Maybe we'll let just the diehards know who you talked to today after the show.
Yeah, I'll put it in I'll drop it in the Discord.
Petey will let you know who he talked to, and that conversation will be coming this weekend, but diehards will know first.
Yep. I'll tell the diehards right after the show.
Well, speaking of rivalries, there's plenty in the NFL. And Petey, we finally made it. Today's the day. The NFL
starts today with the Kansas City Chiefs and the Detroit Lions. It's
crazy.
Time. And if you it's time. It's time for football, and so many exciting things happen.
Lebowski, I am embracing Anaheim, but it's at the very, very beginning. We need to wait and see. NFL, it starts today, and PHNX has a weekly Pick X and NFL Survivor contest, courtesy of Splash Sports. So if you want to, if you're just saying like, I don't really care about any NFL team, or if you're a Cardinals fan, they're not going to be good. Well, if you're a Cardinals fan, it's like, okay. I mean, we've sat through tank seasons. It's not. Sometimes you need to find other things to cheer for.
Fair.
So maybe you want to play an NFL contest, and we have one here at PHNX. Go to splashsports.com/PHNX. Deposit cash. It's $5 to enter, and we'll have weekly Pick X contests and PHNX Survivor contests. The more who enter, the larger the prizes. So we'll be running contests all year. Keep the link handy, and you can also run your own contests on Splash Sports. So head to splashsports.com/PHNX to join in. We'll have different contests coming out, so we're stoked to compete with and against you all. Be sure to click the link in our description. Today is a great day to get started on this as the NFL season kicks off today. Another way you can watch football, this is one of Sean DePaz's favorite ways to watch football, is taking an OGs and watching the game. Sean?
Monday night, Bills Jets.
Ooh.
OGs. I'm going to take
which flavor?
Happy Meal, strawberries and cream. It's red and white, kind of Bills colors. So
okay, I like it.
And the night with an aquaberry, so I hit the blue as well.
Perfect. Yeah, OGs. They have all the colors, all the flavors, and all of the effects. You can get the Sunny Sativa or Mellow Indica blend, the fruits and the creams. Sean just mentioned a few of the flavors, but these gummies are tasty. But they also have whatever effect you're looking for, something calming, something uplifting, sleep edition, microdose, whatever it is. Check out our friends at OG's Brands for yourself and try one or a few of their many delicious flavors. You can check them out across all socials at OG's Brands online and at ogsbrands.com to find them at a dispensary near you. You must be 21 or older to enjoy responsibly. Okay. Petey, you were not on our show yesterday.
I wasn't.
So you didn't have a chance to react to the Bill Armstrong contract extension. And before you say, I said this on yesterday's show, but I just thought every day they were announcing the extension of an assistant coach every day. So I just got used to it. And then I woke up to that one. I was like, oh, here's today's extension. And then I kind of did a double take. I was like, wait a second. We weren't expecting this one. So Craig and I talked about it in depth yesterday. I'm going to allow you to give your thoughts.
I don't want to step on the things that Craig's already talked about, but I just want to say this. It's unusual. He has 2 years left, this and one. He had the option for next year, so he's got 2 years left. To get this locked up this early for that long is pretty rare in the world of sports. So it's a nod of confidence to Bill Armstrong from the ownership and management group, which is great because they like what he's doing and the approach he's taking, which means that the team can stick to their plan, which is what we've been saying all along. And one of the stumbling blocks to a rebuild is when an owner, management group veer off of the plan and you stop it halfway. And now with Bill Armstrong locked up for another 5 seasons, I think that's good for this franchise for some consistency. Yeah. There is also the reality of pro sports. It doesn't matter how long your contract is. You're fireable. I'm sorry, Bill. I didn't mean to say that. But your contract term doesn't mean he's going to be here for 5 years. It doesn't mean he's not going to be here for 10. It's just I think that you can at least comfortably go, okay, this is the plan. This is what we're trying to do. We trust what you're doing. Keep doing what you're doing. And I think that they've done it now with the head coach they've got locked up, the general manager they've got locked up. You've got Cooley signed. You're starting to show signs of stability for this franchise. There is one thing missing.
What's that?
It's an arena.
Yeah.
We're not going to talk about it today.
Well, yeah.
So it's good they've got him locked up. Bill is a very confident guy. And he's confident in the team he's building and what he's putting together here for this franchise. And now he gets an opportunity to execute that plan and do all of the things he wanted to do and he's seen in the past in a team like St. Louis, that he can recreate that model and get this team competitive for a Stanley Cup.
Yeah. And it was interesting. So we had the chance to talk to Bill Armstrong yesterday after our show. And in a lot of his answers, he talked about people warned him, don't take this job. Mm-hmm. that was the reality of the situation at the time. And he talked a lot about some of the shock of coming in. I mean, this is also his first GM job. He worked in the front office for the Blues, but he'd never been the general manager. And then to come into the situation, and you can look at it and say, oh, you're just rebuilding a team, tearing it down, like that's easy. But as Craig, made the argument in his story this morning at gophnx.com, which is great because he kind of breaks it down in arguments against, and then Craig kind of gives his own rebuttals to each of those arguments. So go read it. It's a very good read at gophnx.com. I don't know. He had a lot of adversity in his path when he got here, and he told a really funny story yesterday about just the condition of the ice at Gila River Arena. One of the many things that he was kind of dealing with when he got here. And Craig said he'd never heard the story before, and Craig's heard every story. So we have the story, and it's actually hilarious. So this is Bill Armstrong talking about the ice at Gila when he first got here.
Well, I'll just tell you, a funny story was when I first took over, the ice was so bad, and there was all these rumors that the ice in the Gila were, was popping knees because they would dig into the ice. And so we went in and tried to study, the rink and tried to produce better ice. We found out there's 3 different wells, and we got new Zambonis. And the guy said, well, I think there's a button back here that's never been pressed. And it was a dehumidifier button. And I'm like, well, what do you mean it's never been pressed? He goes, nobody's ever turned it on. I go, well, how old is it? It's like 17 years old, And I'm like, well, someone's got to push the button. We got to find out if we can improve the ice. So we pushed the button, and it ended up working. So that was kind of a weird one for me coming through the door. In the Gila Arena.
It solved the world's problem.
Well, the good news is the ice at Mullet is the best ice in the NHL, so they don't have that
to push any buttons there.
But imagine you come into your first GM job and you're trying to push buttons to make the ice better. You're thinking, I'm just here to manage the team.
Get a team, get players.
Let's try and have people not blow out their knees on the ice.
That's what a job of GM. They got to take care of everything. You're in charge.
General manager. That means everything.
Yeah, general, not specific manager. It's general.
But on a more serious note, just talking about what he's done here so far, all of the draft picks, all the signings. I mean, that just this summer alone, it's quite impressive. But now he has till 28, 29. So that's quite a few years. And now he kind of has to deliver on the moves that he's made already. So I actually asked Bill directly, how do you measure success for yourself and the team now that you're in a completely different phase of this rebuild? And this was his answer.
I think it's a lot of steps that you have to take. We have to become a better team than we were last year. There's some steps that we have to take. I believe we can take those steps. The players this year are a lot different than they were last year. They didn't really know what they had last year coming in as a team, and now people are really excited about coming to play for us. The guys are in earlier; you can see them practicing. So success for myself and the franchise is taking some small steps this year to become a better team. Which also allows us to buy some time for our younger players, the Lamoureux of the world, the Geekies of the world, Simashevs and the Boots, allowing them to kind of mature and then eventually join our team in 3 years. But where we want to get to, obviously this year is improve, and the following year really push to make the playoffs. So where I'll measure success is probably in 2 ways. Can we get in the next few years into playoffs? And then the next part of the success is, are we a team that, you can say, okay, every year these guys should get in. That to me, as long as, we continue to grow and move forward in allowing our players to kind of get in there, younger players to get in there, and our team gets better and better. That's how I'll measure the success. Obviously Craig Morgan and his staff will have different measures for us, but that's internally, that's how you measure it. And I think, as an organization, there's a lot of things that go on behind the scenes with analytics, sports science, strength development, that we also measure ourselves on. But we want to become the best organization possible off the ice too. We want to have great departments that push every envelope we can to become the best we can be. It's a small line between winning or losing to get into the playoffs. to win your first round in the playoffs and to continue to where it's a very, very small line. And it's all the little things that you do behind the scenes that can help you and, become that championship organization. So it's going to be a fun ride. I'm looking forward to it. And it's little small steps to measure our success.
And I think that's what we've been hoping here at PHNX is we want to see this team compete every year, not just to make the playoffs, but compete in the playoffs. And to hear him talk about being a team that, they're in the playoffs. Like, just you expect that team to be in the playoffs. That's the culture you came from in St. Louis. You just expected to be in the playoffs. And it's good to hear that that's what the plan for the future is here in Arizona. We don't have to say, are they? It's how far are they going to go?
Yeah. Yeah. And it's just nice for once to hear it's like, oh, we're just getting as many draft picks as possible. Now first we're going to give the young players time to develop. Then we got to make the playoffs. Then we got to win in the playoffs. And it's just like the future. I don't know. The future feels bright. We just got to see it delivered.
And the other thing he talked about is how you have to have everything around you. One of the things you talk about in pro sports is you can't give people excuses. You can't give a player excuse, well, our facilities suck, or our skills coach is on the last year of his contract and he's not helping us out, or whatever that excuse is, you have to eliminate the excuses. And for him to say that they're working as hard as they can to make each department and each area the best they possibly can be, that's really important. It's not just about what you put on the ice. Yeah. It is literally everything. Yeah. It's how this team travels. It's how you train. It's how you what you give them for nutrition. All of those things matter, and you have to be the best you can at all. And that's exactly the message he gave there. So the future, if he can put these dominoes in place, the future is bright here.
It really is. And I think the hockey side, it's now the whole hockey side is kind of locked up. Things are looking good there. They just have to come through with the arena. And I think if they do that, this is going to be one of the most attractive playoff or NHL destinations in the entire league.
There are already great reasons to be here in the Valley and to live here in Arizona, because, well, we both do. But if a team starts winning on top of that, yeah, I do see that. There have been points in this franchise history that you've seen this being a destination for free agents for one reason or another. I do believe they're getting close to where they were at a few different times. We were able to get high-end free agents here. I think that they're on the precipice of that now. They just need to turn into that winning team, and I think they're really close.
Yep, absolutely. So I don't know if I'm going to be betting on the Coyotes to make the playoffs this season, but it could be fun value maybe over the next few. We'll see what happens. This team always tends to surprise. And if I was going to bet that, I would do so on BetMGM.
For sure.
Because that is the place to bet on sports. And I know we said it already, but it is an exciting day. The NFL is back, and you can bet on tonight's game right now over at BetMGM. Like, it's crazy how many bets there are just for one game. Like,
it's unreal.
It's unreal. So go on BetMGM right now. And if you haven't signed up yet, use the code PHNX when you do. It's part of the sign up process. It'll ask you for a code. You just hit PHNX, and this is what it gets you. If you place your first BetMGM Sportsbook wager through the BetMGM Sportsbook mobile application of at least $10, you'll receive $200 instantly in additional winnings, regardless of your wager's outcome. It doesn't matter if you win your bet or lose your bet, you're getting $200 in bonus bets instantly. And then you can use those bonus bets on whatever you want. And basically it's free money from there. So it's a great offer from our friends at BetMGM. You can check out our show notes for full details. And now you can listen to Shane tell you about the disclaimer.
Gambling problem? Call 1-800-GAMBLER. Colorado, D.C., Illinois, Indiana, Kansas, Louisiana, Maryland, Mississippi, New Jersey, Nevada, Ohio, Pennsylvania, Tennessee, Virginia, West Virginia, Wyoming. Call 877-8-HOPE-NY or text HOPE-NY 467-369 New York. Call 1-800-327-5050 Massachusetts. 21 plus to wager. Please gamble responsibly. Call 1-800-NEXT-STEP Arizona. 1-800-BETS-OFF Iowa. 1-800-270-7117 for confidential help Michigan. 1-800-981-0023 Puerto Rico in partnership with Kansas Crossing Casino and Hotel. Visit BetMGM.com for terms and conditions. U.S. promotional offers not available in D.C., New York, or Ontario.
The reason Petey's on his phone right now is because he's joining the Circle K Inner Circle. Yeah. Downloading the Circle K app right now.
You get discounts on gas.
25 cents per gallon. Like, what a freaking deal. Circle K, they have their new membership program that's completely free called the Inner Circle. Like I said, save 25 cents per gallon on your first 5 fill-ups and get the 6 free on a selection of Circle K products. And it's completely free to join the Inner Circle. All you have to do is download the Circle K app today. Terms and conditions do apply at participating locations. Visit circlek.com for details. I do need to get gas today, and I'm already thinking about like where I'm going after work and where all the Circle Ks are, because I know where they are because there's multiple of them, and I'm just trying to decide which Circle K should I go to, and that is a great problem to have. And I will be
I'll sign up,
claiming my 25 cents off per gallon, because that is a great deal. Okay, last thing before we get out of here. This one has to do with our community, and It has to do with something that's extremely important to me and one of our diehards, Kelly Herman. Hi, Kelly. I know you're watching. And Kelly and I connected over this at, I think it was one of our Four Peaks events, actually. I think it was a pregame meetup that we did sometime this year. And this is one of the things I love about just meeting everybody in person, because you get to, connect with everyone personally. And Kelly will tell you her story, but it was just something, we connected over because we both lost people very close to us to suicide. And Kelly is part of an organization that helps bring awareness and educate, the American Foundation for Suicide Prevention. And they have these community walks called Out of the Darkness Community Walks. And there's going to be one in Phoenix on Saturday, October 21st at 9 a.m. October 21st, it might spark something in your brain. It's the Coyotes home opener, which is that day at 1. You can go to this walk at 9 a.m., go hang out somewhere in middle downtown Tempe before the game, and then go to the game. You can do all of this in one day, or you can just contribute in other ways, especially if you don't live here in Arizona. But enough of me talking about it. I'm going to let Kelly tell you about the Out of the Darkness walk and the organization and what it means to her. All right, we are joined by one of our PHNX Coyotes diehards, Kelly Herman, to talk about a cause very important to her and to me. So Kelly, I'm going to hand it over to you to tell us about this event.
Yeah, great. Thanks, Leah. Thanks, Craig, for having me on. I am actually the co-chair for the Phoenix area Out of the Darkness Walk, which is a program that is run by the American Foundation for Suicide Prevention. I happened to lose my brother 7 years ago to suicide. He was the youngest in our family. I was the oldest. And, it's one of those things that when you lose someone, there's grieving that goes along with it. When you lose someone to suicide, it's a little bit different because there's a lot of survivor guilt that comes along with that. We actually knew for years that my brother was struggling. And so once, he actually passed away, it became one of those things of, I need to get involved in something, to be able to kind of channel that grief and try to help other families to know that they're not alone. So I got involved when I moved out here to Phoenix, just about 7 years ago with the Arizona chapter of AFSP. And I'm co-chairing the walk this year, been involved, the last several years. The walk actually is October 21st, which is the same day as our Coyotes home opener, but the walk is at 9:00 in the morning. So if you want to get outside, enjoy the beautiful weather that we have here in Arizona early in the morning, we'd love to have you join us, for the walk. It starts at 9 a.m. at Salt River Fields. Really cool event because, it's eye-opening for me to kind of see how many families have been affected by suicide. And, it's an emotional morning. We do an opening ceremony right at 9 a.m. and we'll have the stadium this year. So we'll have our opening ceremony. Survivors will get up and tell their stories. We all wear honor beads, that are different colors to reflect, the different ways that, we are affected by suicide. I wear orange beads because I lost a sibling. But there are other beads as well. That morning, on the concourse, we'll have tables set up from our sponsors as well as AFSP merchandise for folks to purchase, honor beads, other remembrances. And it's a time for community and, for, getting together and, sharing the that experience that we all have with, having survived a loved one's suicide. Some of our walkers actually have, survived their own suicide attempts. And I think the thing for me that is just the most incredible about it is that we get to take some time and, help to raise awareness. And the more that we break down the stigma by talking about this, the more that, we help others to reach out when they might be struggling and to try to get that help, which is so difficult to get because of, so much of the thoughts and feelings that people have about mental health in our society today. So It's a great event. I know we have a team PHNX, that we've started now for the walk. So hopefully some of our diehards and other listeners will, get online and join us that morning, for the walk itself. For fundraising, there's no requirement, to actually fundraise. But if you raise $150, you get a cool t-shirt. So like the one I'm wearing now, which is last year's shirt. And, it's a really, really great cause and something that I hope, our hockey community will, and our sports community here in Phoenix will get behind.
Absolutely. And Kelly, you don't have to actually go to the walk, correct? So you can let people know other ways they can get involved without physically being there on that morning.
Absolutely. Obviously it's fabulous when folks are able to be there, but no, there is no requirement for you to attend the walk. There's no requirement to fundraise. You can, sign up, as, somebody who wants to fundraise for AFSP. The programs that they do are just incredible in terms of, not only education, not only support for the community, but also for research, which is really, really important in this area as well. And so you can sign up as somebody who wants to participate in the walk, set up a Facebook fundraiser. I mean, I hit my fundraising goal like within 30 minutes just by setting up a Facebook fundraiser with my family and friends. And you don't have to be there, that morning for the walk if you don't want to. If you do want to come out and walk with us, it's always a beautiful morning. The walk route itself is just under a mile, so it's not a really difficult, walk to do either. But if you don't have time that morning because you're gearing up to go to the Coyotes home opener, or maybe you're going to the ASU game that night like I am, then you don't have to be there. It's okay.
Awesome.
Kelly, I know that we're going to put up information for this event, so we'll let all of our diehards know, all of our listeners and readers know, really. But are you aware of maybe some other resources out there for people who might be going through these issues right now?
Yeah, I think the most important resource that, we've been able to get within the last year or so has been 988, which is, if you are struggling with suicidal thoughts and you need help, that gets you connected to the hotline so that you can actually talk with, somebody who is trained, mental health counselor to be able to, work through that and try to get the help that you need. Our chapter does a lot, here in the state of Arizona and New Mexico. There are other events, a lot of campus programming too, as somebody who's worked in higher education for 25 years, seeing the way that our college students a lot of times are facing mental health, challenges, that's really difficult. And because September is Suicide Prevention Month, and actually September 10th is World Suicide Prevention Day, I think it's called, and it's, kicks off the 10th through the 16th is Suicide Prevention Week. You're going to see a lot of resources, webinars. I just saw, one advertised this morning on AFSP's national Twitter feed about, their medical director who's going to be, hosting a webinar. They do a lot, especially when you see different, events, in the news about suicide, especially when somebody famous takes their own life. They do a lot of work then, to be able to look at, the contagion effect of suicide. And that's what this webinar is about. And there's also a lot of resources about how to talk about suicide. There are some words that you want to use when you talk about suicide, and especially, for journalists, Craig, like yourself, how you want to talk about it in ways that are outdated in talking about it. And, there's some really great resources that AFSP has. And I know also, when we first moved to the Valley, we lived in Chandler, and my younger two kids were in 8th and 10th grades. And there had been a lot of kids taking their own lives when we first moved here. And there was just some incredible local resources as well. I don't have all of them to put my finger on right now, but there's been a lot of work that's been done between AFSP and, local mental health resources to try to make that better. But I would say, keeping in mind 988 is, a really important resource. If you're struggling, reach out, get some help.
Well, like Kelly mentioned, we do have a team PHNX, which we'll drop the link in our YouTube chat, of course, and you can join. You can help us reach our fundraising goal. You can just share the link and get others to join. And if you're in Arizona, it would be amazing to see you at the walk October 21st at 9 a.m. Enough time to get to the Coyotes game that day at 1 o'clock. So I just think it could be a really beautiful day for the community. And Kelly, thank you so much, for bringing this to us. And, it's something that's touched your life and my life, and something that you and I have connected over. And this is just what community is all about. So I'm hoping that our diehards can, help at least raise a little bit of awareness, maybe a little bit of money, and, come together for a great cause.
Yeah, and if you do wind up joining us that morning, you can find me in the Discord. But I'm also a 6-foot-tall redhead. So if you happen to come to the walk that morning, I'll be at the volunteer table. Please come up and tell me that you're there. We'd love to have you. My brother was 12 years younger than I was, so we didn't grow up in the same kind of household. You know, he was 6 when I went away to college, and I got married a few years later and started having kids of my own. And hockey was the one common thing that he and I had, that we shared a love for. And I love the community that we have here at PHNX. I love that you guys are supporting this. Thank you to Saul, for being on board when I approached him about this idea, and can't wait to see how many of you, come out and join us.
Thanks so much, Kelly. We'll see you on October 21st.
Great. Thanks.
Thank you again to Kelly for joining and sharing her story and, reaching out about this event. It was an event that I wasn't even aware of. And I think it's just, we talk a ton about community here at PHNX and, supporting Kelly and everybody. I'm sure there's so many people who have been, unfortunately touched by somebody that they know or someone they know that knows someone who's been affected by suicide. As I mentioned, it directly affected and affects my life. So it's just, it's important to come together as a community. Sean dropped the link in the chat. So that's the link to Team PHNX. So you can join. You don't have to give any money when you join our team. You don't have to commit to the walk when you join our team. But I do think, joining the team and sharing the link. And as Kelly mentioned, you could do a Facebook fundraiser, share the link with your family and friends, and hopefully we can hit our team's fundraising goal of $2,000, maybe even go past that. And any way that you can participate, as Kelly mentioned, there's plenty of time to go to the walk and then go to the Coyotes home opener that day. This is just, a cause that's really important to us here on PHNX Coyotes and to our diehards. So I just want to encourage everyone's participation in this. And again, the link is in the chat right now, and we will continue to share it on social media, in the Discord, and talk more about this event in the weeks leading up to it.
Yeah, really quick from me. I think Leah hit it on the head about community. And one thing, when we talk about sports, we always talk about a community of what PHNX is, and this is part of that community. This is about helping other people. And Leah talked about, you don't know who suicide has affected. You don't know people's stories. People have things. So here's what I want to say today. Every time I get to talk to a group of people, I challenge that group of people, and I'm going to do this today. I challenge everybody listening to this show, whether it's on podcast, on YouTube, call somebody today. Call anybody. If you can't call somebody, see your neighbor that's cleaning up their front yard or bringing out their garbage can, and just say, how are you doing? And mean it. And listen to how are they doing. Call an old friend you haven't talked to since college. Call a family member you haven't talked to in a year. Call somebody and just say, how are you doing? And listen. It's so important. I vow to do that every single day. I call and reach out to somebody, because there's somebody out there that needs to hear from you. So thanks. So I challenge everybody to do that today.
Absolutely. And if you have any questions, you can reach out to Kelly or me on Discord. Or if you're not a diehard, you can tweet at me and I will try my best to answer all your questions, or I will point you toward Kelly, who can answer them even better. But hopefully we'll see some PHNX community out there at the walk. And again, it kind of is good timing for the home opener. So it's at Salt River Fields as well. So it's just up the 101. It's quick drive down to Tempe. And on that day, I'm already thinking ahead. I'm a planner, Petey. You know this about me. So okay, the walk. Gotta eat. Illegal Pete's. Great spot because it's walking distance, scootering distance, Uber distance, driving distance, very quick.
Go eat. Refuel.
Go to Illegal Pete's in between this walk and the first game. It's a great pregame spot for all Coyotes home games this season. And you all know how good the queso is and how good the burritos and the bowls, and you got the margaritas.
I'm going there.
Yeah. We're going there. Go. Last year we did we did meetups there that weren't even planned by PHNX. No, we would just message Discord. Hey, we're going. So swing by Illegal Pete's. It's your go-to spot this summer. And the weather, it's going to be really nice starting in about a month here.
Well, when?
Fingers crossed.
Not this weekend.
You can stop by Illegal Pete's for happy hour 3 to 8 p.m. every day at all 12 locations. Illegal Pete's is your go-to spot for burritos, buddies, and beer for 28 years. Also, if you're outside, you got to make sure your eyes are protected. So bring your Shady Rays as well.
Can I tell my Shady Ray story?
Yes.
So I went to a thing this morning. We're going to have more on that as we continue. But I went to an event this morning, and the director of Coyotes Communications and Public Relations, Rich Nairn, was there with his sunglasses. And I said, you know what you need? You need a pair of Shady Rays. And he was
No
standing
way.
next, I swear to God I did. And he was standing next to a current Coyote player. And the people in the Discord know, because I dropped the name in the Discord already. I looked at him and I said, you need a pair of Shady Rays because you can get them with all your outfits. They're durable. And if you break them, you can turn them in. And they're like, how do you know all this? And I go, buddy, they are a proud sponsor of the PHNX show, Shady Rays. So he is that player.
Did you tell him our promo code?
Well, buddy, of course I did. So I literally read a commercial to him. 250,000 5-star reviews, can't be wrong. So that player is going to check out Shady Rays.
There you have it.
And I won't say who that player is. Discord
Unless
knows.
you're in the Discord, then
They
you know. And exclusively for our listeners and Coyotes players, I guess, Shady Rays is giving out their best deal of the season. Go to shadyrays.com and use code PHNX for 50% off 2 or more pairs of polarized sunglasses. Try for yourself the shades rated 5 stars by over 250,000 people.
And now 250,002.
Yes.
Because I just passed it along.
Yes. We keep teasing that Petey said the name of that player in the Discord. If you're thinking, how do I get into the Discord? You must be a diehard to join. So
All Texas is a diehard.
Yes. Become a diehard today. Get access to the Discord, 20% off merchandise, 20% off events. You get exclusive Craig articles once a week that are for diehards only. There's just so many perks to becoming a diehard, and more to come. We're going to do more of Petey's Puck Talk hangouts. We're going to try and do those once a month. That's for diehards only in the Discord. So just a ton of great reasons to be a diehard, especially with the season right around the corner.
Yeah, it's great. It's a great community to talk about hockey and other things. But it's just everybody's on the same page, and sometimes the internet's a scary place, but not in the Discord.
The Discord is...
No, it's nice.
We try to make it
be a diehard because look at all the things you get with it, and the people that have take advantage of it, and we talk about all the events, and you talk about the merch. Like I literally rep the merch every day.
Yeah, I'm gonna be bringing so much of our merch to Australia.
That reminds me.
Okay,
Never
we'll
mind.
talk after the show.
Kelly.
Okay, lots of events coming up, especially as the season gets going here.
Can we talk about any fun stuff that I did?
1 second.
Okay.
In 1 second, yeah. You can reserve your tickets for free to our PHNX Cardinals away game watch parties. You can join us for every away game at the BetMGM Sportsbook at State Farm Stadium for ticket raffles, prizes, giveaways, and more. The link is in our show notes. So that's going to be a ton of fun. Listen, we were all about pack therapy here when this team was tanking. I think whatever the equivalent of pack therapy for the Cardinals is, we're going to need that. So if you're a Cardinals fan, let's all get together. And BetMGM is a great venue to watch a sporting event. Holy moly, those TVs are massive.
Great. Food's good.
Yeah. So, okay, Petey, now you can talk about what
I just want to say, because one of the things, I just want to tease some stuff. There's some stuff. Stay tuned to the PHNX Coyotes Twitter, YouTube channel over the next several days, because some stuff's going to drop there that I did.
Yeah, if you thought the dump video was good, like Petey has just been on a roll.
I got a good one coming.
Everything he's done has just been a magic touch.
But one Monday is going to be interesting. It's going to be interesting. I haven't seen it yet, but so anyway, stay tuned because I got a lot more stuff coming up along with Craig's articles, and I want to get it all in before they go to Australia because I'm very sad.
It's only a week. So you can subscribe to the PHNX Sports YouTube channel so you never miss when we go live, and you never miss any of our extra content because we put out extra content on YouTube besides just our live shows. So make sure you're subscribed. If you prefer to listen to our shows on audio, make sure you're subscribed wherever you get your podcasts as well. And you can follow us all on Twitter, Craig, wherever he may be. I know he's at the Ice Den, at Craig S. Morgan. You can follow Petey at Espiritus Hockey. You can follow me at Leah Merrill. You can follow Sean at Sean_DePaz. Follow the show at PHNX_Coyotes. We will be back live again tomorrow at 11 a.m. for a 2-year anniversary edition of the PHNX Coyotes show. I cannot believe I just said that. But everybody, thanks so much for tuning in. Hit the like button on this video before you head out. Enjoy the rest of your Thursday, and we will see everybody tomorrow.